Ever wonder what became of the legendary Marx Brothers after the laughter stopped? They conquered Broadway and Hollywood with their zany comedy, but their final chapters were a mix of triumph, tragedy, and surprising twists. One brother died nearly broke, another reinvented himself on television, and yet another left showbiz to become an inventor. Stay tuned. The real-life fate of each Marx brother might just astonish you. Number 5. Chico Marx Josh Leonard. Chico Marx was the fast-talking, piano-playing schemer of the act, and life imitated art. Chico had a lifelong gambling addiction and a weakness for women, a combination that kept him perpetually low on funds. In fact, it became Hollywood lore that Groucho and Harpo only agreed to make some of the later Marx Brothers movies because Chico needed the money. While his brothers saved and invested their film earnings, Chico often squandered his paychecks at the poker table or racetrack. By the 1940s, he had even declared bankruptcy, and Harpo and Groucho had to hold Chico's money in trust and put him on an allowance in his later years. When asked how much he'd lost gambling over his lifetime, Chico quipped, "Find out how much Harpo has. That's how much I've lost." Despite these troubles, Chico's charm and talent never faded. After the Marx Brothers stopped making films together, their final movie as a trio was, in 1949, Chico kept performing to pay the bills. He led a small orchestra, appeared on TV and in nightclubs, even playing the same vaudeville circuits in old age that he'd once toured in his youth. Sadly, years of hard living caught up with him. Chico battled heart disease throughout the 1950s. He passed away on October 11, 1961, at his Hollywood home, the first Marx brother to die, age 74. At Chico's funeral, there was one last Marx Brothers worthy moment. As an overly solemn eulogy droned on, Harpo leaned over to Chico's daughter and whispered, "When I go, do me a favor and hire a mime." It was a fitting tribute to Chico Marx. Even in death, he inspired a laugh. His legacy lived on in the laughter he left behind, and in the oft-repeated family joke that, had Chico lived any longer, he would have gambled away even more. Number 4. Harpo Marx. Arthur. Harpo Marx, the mute, horn-honking angel with a wild wig, was in many ways Chico's opposite offstage. Where Chico was restless, Harpo found peace. After the Marx Brothers' film career ended, Harpo happily settled into a life of semi-retirement. He had married actress Susan Fleming in 1936, and together they adopted 4 children, forming a close-knit family. Harpo traded Hollywood hustle for home life, contentedly pursuing hobbies like painting and playing his beloved harp on quiet evenings. His wife once joked that Harpo enjoyed puttering around the house and even took up odd interests like croquet and bonsai gardening, a far cry from the frenetic prankster we see on screen. But Harpo didn't vanish from the public eye entirely. He still popped up occasionally to delight fans, famously guest-starring as himself on Lucille Ball's TV show in 1955, where he and Lucy performed an iconic mirror routine. He also penned a best-selling autobiography, Harpo Speaks, in 1961, sharing joyful and poignant stories from his life. In it, readers discovered that the silent Marx brother had a lot to say after all. By the early 1960s, Harpo's health began to falter due to heart disease, a Marx family trait. True to his optimistic spirit, he continued performing occasional routines and playing music as long as he could. In September 1964, Harpo underwent open-heart surgery in Los Angeles. Tragically, he did not survive the operation. Harpo Marx died on September 28, 1964, at age 75, which was his and Susan's 28th wedding anniversary. His passing hit the surviving brothers very hard. Groucho's son later said that Harpo's funeral was the only time he ever saw his father Groucho cry, a testament to Harpo's beloved place in the family. Groucho Marx, Julius Groucho, Marx with his grease paint mustache and razor-sharp wit, arguably had the most celebrated post-Marx Brothers career. But in the mid-1940s, after their string of movie hits had slowed, Groucho's future looked uncertain. The studios weren't calling, and by 1947 Groucho was in a bit of a career lull. Ever the quick thinker, he pivoted to the new medium of radio and soon television. That year, he launched a comedy quiz show called You Bet Your Life, which unexpectedly became a smash hit. Groucho's lightning-fast ad-libs and wisecracks as host made the show must-listen radio and later must-watch TV. It ran for an incredible 14 years, 1947 to 1961, turning Groucho into one of America's most beloved television personalities. At a time when many of his vaudeville-era peers faded away, Groucho reinvented himself for a new generation on the small screen. Groucho's sardonic humor and cultural critiques also kept him in the public conversation. He wrote books, appeared on talk shows, and never missed a chance to drop a witty quip. One classic Groucho remark, "I intend to live forever or die trying." By the late 1960s and early 70s, a Marx Brothers revival was in full swing. Young fans on college campuses had discovered their old films. Groucho basked in this late-in-life adoration. In 1972, at age 81, he even performed a one-man live show at Carnegie Hall to a packed house, singing songs and recounting anecdotes. Honors soon followed. In 1974, Groucho took the stage at the Academy Awards to accept an honorary Oscar on behalf of all the Marx Brothers, recognizing their unequaled achievements in the art of motion picture comedy. It was a crowning moment of validation. With his brothers Chico and Harpo gone by then, Groucho teared up as he thanked them, joking that he wished Harpo and Chico could be here to share this. But they're in heaven, probably negotiating a deal with God. Yet, Groucho's final years were not without struggle. As he grew older, his health declined. He suffered from heart issues, and years of hard work caught up to him. He hired a young personal manager named Aaron Fleming, who became his constant companion and a source of controversy. In his 80s, Groucho was increasingly frail and had trouble managing his affairs. Fleming pushed the aging comedian to keep performing and reportedly took control of much of his day-to-day life. Groucho's close family grew concerned as bitter legal battles erupted over his care and finances. In fact, in his final year, a court appointed Groucho's son as conservator after allegations that Fleming was mishandling his estate. It was a sad coda. The man who had made millions laugh was now vulnerable to elder abuse in his twilight years. Groucho Marx died on August 19, 1977, at age 86 due to pneumonia. In a twist of fate, the world's attention was elsewhere. Elvis Presley had died just 3 days earlier, and the media frenzy over the king of rock and roll's death largely overshadowed Groucho's passing. Number 2, Gummo Marx. Not everyone knows Milton Gummo Marx, because Gummo left the act before the Marx Brothers ever hit Hollywood. As the shy, soft-spoken brother, Gummo never developed an outrageous stage persona like his siblings. He performed with young Groucho and vaudeville in the 1910s, but when World War I came, Gummo was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1918. In his absence, baby brother Zeppo was brought into the act, and by the time Gummo returned from service, the 4 Marx Brothers on stage were Groucho, Chico, Harpo, and Zeppo. Rather than rejoin the act, Gummo chose a different path entirely. After the war, Gummo tried his hand at business. He sold dresses and fabric for a while, but eventually the call of showbiz came in a new form. In the 1920s, Gummo teamed up with Zeppo to form a talent agency, representing actors and writers, including their own brothers. Gummo discovered he had a knack for the business side of entertainment. He managed the Marx Brothers' contracts and helped guide their careers from behind the scenes. In fact, Gummo became quite successful and respected as an agent, known for his honesty and acumen. Outside of work, Gummo led a stable, quiet life. He married Helen von Tilser in 1929 and raised 2 children, one adopted, one biological. Unlike his brothers, Gummo avoided the public eye and the gossip columns. One fun fact, he did hold at least one patent as an inventor for a special collapsible clothes box to store laundry. It failed due to rising cardboard costs, he later joked. It seems inventive thinking ran in the Marx family, as even Zeppo would secure a few patents of his own. In his later years, Gummo watched with pride as his brothers achieved worldwide fame, but he remained the humble Marx brother that fans barely knew. By the 1970s, he was living in Palm Springs, California, enjoying retirement. Gummo Marx passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage on April 21, 1977, at the age of 83. In a poignant decision, Groucho's family never told Groucho about Gummo's death. By 1977, Groucho was very ill, and they feared that the shock of losing Gummo would worsen Groucho's fragile health. Indeed, Groucho himself died just 4 months later, without ever knowing that Gummo was gone. Number 1. Zeppo Marx, Herbert Zeppo. Marx was the youngest of the Marx Brothers, and perhaps the most underappreciated on screen. In the first 5 Marx Brothers movies, The Coconuts Through Duck Soup, Zeppo played the handsome straight man, the romantic lead who set up jokes for his zany brothers. But Zeppo longed for a different identity. After Duck Soup, 1933, he walked away from performing entirely. He was only 32, but he had no interest in continuing as the extra Marx brother. First, Zeppo joined Gummo in the talent agency business. Together, they ran Marx and Marx Talent Agency, representing Hollywood writers and actors, even negotiating some of Groucho, Chico, and Harpo's deals. Zeppo proved to be savvy in business, but his ambitions didn't stop there. Always mechanically inclined, he had been a mechanic for Ford before taking the stage in his youth. Zeppo branched out into engineering and manufacturing. During World War II, he founded Marman Products Company, a company that made parts for the war effort. Remarkably, Zeppo's firm produced a motorcycle, the Marman Twin, and the famous Marman clamps that were used to secure atomic bombs inside the B-29 bombers, Enola Gay, and Boxcar. It's an astonishing twist. The jokester from vaudeville helped build components of the atomic age. Zeppo also became an inventor with several patents to his name. In 1969, he co-invented a wristwatch heart rate monitor for cardiac patients, which would sound an alarm if the wearer's heart stopped or went into distress. He also patented a therapeutic heating pad device. Years before the era of Fitbits and Apple Watches, Zeppo Marx was innovating life-saving wearable tech. In his personal life, Zeppo had his ups and downs. He was married twice, first to Marion Benda, with whom he adopted 2 sons, and later to Barbara Blakely, who eventually left him and married Frank Sinatra. He rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous in Palm Springs, becoming a close friend of Sinatra, George Burns, and other Rat Pack-era figures. There were even a few brushes with drama. In the 1950s, Zeppo fell into some questionable high-stakes gambling circles, causing his brothers concern. But generally, Zeppo enjoyed a comfortable, prosperous life, far from the comedy spotlight. Zeppo Marx was the last surviving Marx brother. In his later years, he battled cancer, which went into remission but tragically returned in the late 1970s. Zeppo passed away on November 30th, 1979, at the age of 78 due to lung cancer. He died in Rancho Mirage, California, and as per his wishes, his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. At his funeral, among those paying respects were his former wife Barbara and her husband Frank Sinatra, a testament to how far Zeppo's life had traveled from his humble vaudeville origins.